Hi, everyone, and welcome to our channel. In this space, we dive deep into the wisdom of books, sharing thoughts, lessons, and meaningful conversations that inspire growth, kindness, and transformation. Every book holds a seed of change.
And together we will spread those seeds and build a better world. If you believe in the power of words and ideas, subscribe, like, and share.
Join us, subscribe, like, and share. Check out our channel. You will find much more. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today, we are plunging headfirst into some really compelling source material. It's excerpts from a book called 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life.
That is quite a title. It certainly sets expectations, doesn't it?
It really does.
And our mission here, I think, is to cut through maybe some of that catchy phrasing and get right to the core, pull out the most impactful, actionable wisdom from these pages.
Exactly. Let's forget the noise. Think of this as your shortcut, maybe, to feeling more empowered, more authentic, and just ready to tackle life head-on.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack some practical steps, challenge some assumptions we might have, maybe ones we don't even realize we have, and hopefully find some surprising insights to help you build a life that feels, well, genuinely kick-ass, whatever that actually means for you.
So setting the stage a bit, the book, it covers a really wide spectrum. You've got relationships, personal values, self-perception, even embracing imperfection. Lots of ground.
And it frames the advice as BS-free wisdom, aims for directness.
It definitely does. And right from the get-go, there's this foundational idea that keeps popping up. Taking radical responsibility for your life, for your choices.
Yeah, and it's crucial. This isn't about blame. That's where we get stuck, right?
Right. It's about shifting focus to your power, especially the power you have over your own thoughts.
Ah, the thought piece.
That's the critical link the source makes.
Yeah.
Your feelings, it argues, are often dictated by your thoughts, not necessarily the circumstances themselves.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, like, if you're looking at your bank account, the circumstance is, I'm in debt. But the feeling, maybe despair, the source says that's driven by the thought, I can never get out of this.
Which is just a belief, right? Not like a hard fact.
Exactly. It's a belief. And the book suggests this surprisingly simple way to challenge those kinds of limiting beliefs. You just ask yourself, what if it was different?
That sounds almost too simple.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But just by opening your mind to that possibility, even considering it, you start to chip away at the certainty of that negative belief.
So what if getting out of debt was possible?
Right. Or what if the idea that all the good partners are taken? What if that's just not true? Or what if I'm not too old, young, whatever, to go after that dream?
Just cracking the door open a little.
Yeah, even a tiny crack in that certainty can be a catalyst. It shifts you from feeling stuck, from a fixed mindset to one where things could be different.
Okay, I see. So a lot of these ideas we'll look at revolve around perspective, choosing how you view things, pain, breakups, your own limits.
Exactly. It's all about reclaiming some agency over your internal world, your internal state.
All right, let's move inward then. The source spends a good chunk of time on our inner landscape, and specifically that voice, the inner critic.
Yeah, the inner critic, we all have it, right? That voice chiming in with negative stuff about how we look or how we measure up,
Yeah.
what we're capable of.
Or not capable of.
Exactly. And it can range from just, mildly annoying background noise to, well, sometimes it's a genuinely nasty bully inside your head.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the book isn't saying this voice just vanishes, right? It's not like, poof, it's gone.
No, absolutely not. That's not the goal. It's more about acceptance. Recognizing, okay, this voice exists, it's just thoughts, but then learning how to manage it, how to quiet its influence.
And separate it from your actual self?
Precisely. And a key technique they suggest is directly questioning its assumptions. So when that voice pipes up with, you're such a failure at this, the book prompts you to ask, really pointedly, is this true?
Like really true, 100%.
Yeah. Can you honestly say, with absolute certainty, that you are a total, complete failure? Usually the answer is no.
That simple question forces you to look for the evidence, or maybe the lack of it.
It pulls the thought out of the realm of absolute fact and into the light where you can actually examine it, like holding it up and saying, okay, let's see if you actually hold water.
Gotcha.
And the source also dives into something really common, fat talk. It challenges the whole idea that you can actually feel fat.
What do they mean by that? Like fat isn't a feeling?
Exactly. It argues fat isn't an emotion like sadness or anger. So when you catch yourself saying, oh, I feel so fat, the real work, according to the source, is to pause and ask, okay, what am I actually feeling right now?
Ah, so underneath the fat talk.
Right. Are you feeling uncomfortable in your clothes, maybe unmotivated,
Yeah.
confused, tired, anxious? What's the real emotion there?
That's a powerful distinction. It's not the physical state, it's the emotion that thought is kind of masking.
Precisely. And this ties right into stopping the dieting drama, as the book calls it.
The endless cycle.
Yeah. It suggests that constant dieting is often just a symptom. It's usually connected to something much deeper than just food or exercise.
Mhm.
Things like self-worth, maybe control issues.
We're chasing some external ideal.
Definitely. Chasing that idea that a perfect body will magically bring lasting confidence. The source calls that a false sense of happiness.
And there's a really blunt, actionable step here, isn't there?
Oh yeah, get rid of your bathroom scale.
Just toss it.
Yep. The source doesn't really pull punches there, that number. It doesn't measure your health, your worth, your happiness. Focusing on it just keeps you trapped in that cycle, chasing something fleeting, some external nod of approval.
This sounds like it connects to the bigger theme of perfectionism. The book calls it a poison apple.
Yeah, poison apple. Vivid, right? It's presented as this race you can never win because the finish line just keeps moving.
Always just out of reach.
Always. And to deal with this inner perfectionist voice, the book offers a kind of unique tactic. Create a character for it.
A character, like give it a name.
Yeah, and even a look. The example given is Vicious Bitch, who looks like this impossibly thin mannequin.
Hmm.
Perfect on the outside, but totally hollow inside.
Huh. Interesting.
The idea is by externalizing it, giving it a persona, you can better recognize when it's talking versus when you're talking. You can see it as separate from your true self instead of just internalizing all its crazy demands.
That's a pretty clever way to create some distance.
It is, and the source backs this up with some powerful reminders about imperfection itself. It even pulls in quotes, like from Brené Brown, about how our imperfections are what connect us, remind us we're human, we're in this together.
Right, it's not a flaw to be hidden, it's
Yeah.
common ground. It's where growth happens.
Exactly. And embracing that imperfection is fundamental to self-love, which the source basically says is essential for a kick-ass life. And it highlights something important. Forgiving yourself is often way harder than forgiving someone else who hurt you.
Oof, yeah, that resonates. So the chapter Loving Yourself is the New Black. What's the core message there?
It's about embracing your whole self, flaws and all, unconditionally. It's not something you earn by hitting goals or looking a certain way or having X amount of money.
It's not conditional.
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's described more as a set of actions, internal decisions, like forgiving past mistakes, yours, and maybe the impact others had on you. Truly owning your story, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Setting healthy boundaries, meaning you stop tolerating toxic dynamics or people who drain you. Actively caring for yourself physically, mentally, emotionally. Allowing yourself to actually receive praise without deflecting it immediately.
That's a hard one for a lot of people.
It really is.
Yeah.
And fundamentally believing deep down that you are inherently worthy of what you want in life.
So it's not just a feeling like, oh, I feel lovey towards myself today. It's an active practice.
Exactly. It's ongoing work. And the source talks about this state of self-love creating a kind of magnetic energy. Like when you operate from that place of worthiness and healthy boundaries, you naturally start attracting healthier relationships, better opportunities.
It's not luck. It's
Love. Self-love radiating outward. That's the idea.
And this all builds up to the concept of being a legend in your own mind, which sounds potentially arrogant.
Right. But the source is quick to clarify. It's not about vanity or thinking you're better than everyone. It's about this deep inner conviction that you are, and the book uses strong language here, fucking priceless.
Okay. So recognizing your own intrinsic value.
Yes. Recognizing that you have 100% control over the things that really matter. How you talk to yourself, how you treat your own body, who you allow into your inner circle, what influences you let in, what you decide is important to you.
You set the standard.
You set the standard.
Right.
By valuing yourself, you inherently teach others how they should treat you.
Okay, let's shift from the inner world to how we interact with others. The source has some pretty direct advice here, too. One point that stood out was about proactively asking friends how you can support them, especially if you're kind of stuck in your own stuff.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. The insight there is that sometimes just turning your focus outward, being of service, even for a moment, can be incredibly powerful for shifting your own perspective when you feel bogged down by your problems.
Makes sense. Takes you out of your own head for a bit.
Exactly. And the source is clear. It's totally okay to feel good about yourself for being helpful. That's natural. Just as long as that good feeling isn't dependent on getting praise back or a specific reaction, The value is in the act itself.
That's a useful distinction. Okay, then there's the potentially more uncomfortable idea. Dumping the friends you've outgrown.
Yeah. That one can be tough. The source uses a pretty blunt analogy here. Imagine you've got this old, beat-up car in your garage.
Yeah.
It's always breaking down, needs constant work, drains your energy, maybe leaks oil. But you keep it. Why? Maybe history, maybe you feel like you owe it something for past journeys.
Yeah.
Even though maybe you could easily afford a new, reliable car now.
Ah, I see where this is going. The friendship is the beat-up car.
That's the analogy.
Yeah.
Why hold on to that relationship that's constantly breaking down, dragging you down, when you could essentially upgrade your ride? Friendships, the source argues, can become life clutter.
Life clutter, wow.
And it suggests you don't owe someone perpetual friendship just because you have history, especially if the dynamic has become toxic or just fundamentally pulls you away from the life you actually want to live now.
That requires some serious honesty and boundary setting.
Absolutely. It's a tough conversation, but potentially necessary for your own growth. Which ties right into another point. Don't take other people's piles of shit.
Haha. Okay, spell that one out.
Basically, don't internalize other people's negativity, their problems, their judgments, or their opinions as your own responsibility or as your truth. Let their stuff be their stuff.
Keep it separate. Got it. On a more positive note for interactions, the source talks about effective listening, specifically reflective listening.
Yes, this is such a practical skill. It means actively restating what you heard the other person say, but in your own words.
Not just parroting it back.
Right. It shows you are actually listening, trying to understand their meaning. It demonstrates you care, and it also helps clarify things right there in the moment. No misunderstandings.
Makes sense.
And the source adds another simple but often missed step. Explicitly ask the other person what they need or want from you in that conversation.
Don't just assume.
Exactly. Don't guess. Do they just need to vent and be heard? Do they want advice? Do they just want you to sit there with them? Ask.
That's really practical advice you could use, like today. Okay, the source also tackles something really tough. Getting over your ex.
Yeah, and it frames breakups very realistically, like the death of a relationship. It acknowledges the intense grief involved, and importantly, says that process can genuinely take years. There's no magic timeline.
Okay, so what are the practical steps offered?
Well, top of the list and very direct. Quit the stalking behavior.
Oof. Define stalking in this context.
It means blocking them on social media if you need to,
Yeah.
not driving by their house, deleting old texts if they trigger you, resisting sending those, innocent check-in messages when you're really looking for connection or info. It's about creating a clean break if you're still emotionally tangled.
Cutting the cord.
Yes. Also crucial, fill the void. Keep yourself busy, but meaningfully busy.
Yeah.
Fill your calendar with things you actually want to do. Set new goals for yourself, unrelated to the relationship. Strategize your hell yeses, the things you're excited about pursuing now.
Okay, what else?
Shifting perspective, trying to see the experience eventually as a gift. Now, that doesn't mean minimizing the pain at all.
Right.
It means focusing on what you learned about yourself, about relationships, about what you truly want and need, rather than just fixating on the ex's flaws or how unfair it all was.
Finding the lesson in the pain.
Kind of, yeah. And there's also a challenge in there, particularly for people who tend to jump from one relationship straight into the next.
Rebound pattern.
Exactly. The source encourages allowing yourself to actually be alone for a while. It even brings up the possibility of love addiction, being addicted to the feeling of being in a relationship or the initial high of falling in love, which prevents you from doing the necessary healing and internal work after a breakup.
That's a deep cut.
It is, and
Okay.
it leads right into challenging the myth of closure.
The idea that you need something from the ex to heal.
Precisely. The source argues that external actions, like needing that one last conversation, hoping they'll say the magic words that finally make you feel okay, they won't necessarily bring healing.
So where does closure come from?
From you. True closure, the peace that comes with it, is entirely within your control. You get to decide. Are you going to keep torturing yourself by hanging on to external hope, or are you going to consciously choose to create peace in your own heart, regardless of what the other person does or says?
Puts the power squarely back in your own hands.
Exactly. And finally, in this section on interactions, there's a look at not being a control freak.
Okay, what does that look like, according to the source?
It paints a picture of someone who tries to help others by constantly pointing out their perceived flaws, someone who micromanages situations or people, someone with really unrealistic expectations for others.
Sounds exhausting for everyone involved.
Totally. And the core insight here, the source suggests, is that this behavior is often a distraction. You're trying to fix other people's lives, fix their problems, mainly to avoid dealing with your own stuff.
Your own pink elephants in the room.
Exactly. It feels easier, maybe safer, to focus on someone else's mess than to look at your own. But as the source points out, ignoring your problems doesn't make them go away. They just fester.
Okay, shifting gears again. Let's talk about action, purpose, and growth. The source really encourages taking leaps, starting with cannonball out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and I like how it clarifies this. It doesn't have to mean, skydiving tomorrow or quitting your job to backpack through Asia, though it could.
Right, it can be smaller.
Absolutely. The source emphasizes it can be small, manageable things that just push your boundaries a little, like painting a room a color you love but feel nervous about, changing your hairstyle, finally joining that club you've been eyeing, picking up a hobby you dropped years ago.
So it's about recognizing the fear.
Recognizing your internal fear stories, those excuses you tell yourself about why you can't do something, and then taking a step anyway, just one step.
And to give those steps some traction, maybe, the source advises, tell 5 people about your secret dream.
This is about making it real. By sharing your dream, even a small one, with others, you create witnesses.
Witnesses.
Yeah, it makes the dream feel more tangible, pulls it out of just being an idea in your head into actual conversation. It can create accountability, maybe even attract unexpected help or support. If you keep your dreams locked inside, secret, you're just much less likely to act on them.
Makes sense. Okay, what about finding your passions? There's so much pressure around finding your purpose.
Right, and the source really pushes back against that pressure. The idea that you have to find one singular lifelong life mission. It says it's totally okay if you don't know what it is yet, or if it changes over time. That's normal.
So it debunks some myths.
Definitely. It calls out the bullshit ideas, like your passion isn't good enough unless it's some grand world-changing thing, or that you can never change your mind once you pick a passion, or that if you haven't found it yet, you haven't found a real purpose.
What's the alternative view then?
A really powerful point the source makes is who you are and what you represent is purposeful enough. Your purpose might just be to learn, to be kind, to connect, to help others in small ways, right where you are. Many people have multiple passions, multiple meaningful things they do over their lives. It's not a one-shot deal.
So how do you tap into potential passions?
Simple questions can help, like, what do I love doing so much that I just lose track of time? What topics do I find myself reading about or researching just for fun? And sometimes, interestingly, your deepest pain or suffering can actually point you towards a passion.
How so?
By giving you this unique empathy, this deep understanding that allows you to help others who face similar struggles, turning pain into purpose.
Okay. Now, on this path of action and growth, failure isn't inevitable, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the source confronts failure head-on, not as the opposite of success, but as an essential, unavoidable part of success.
There's a pretty stark truth in there, isn't there?
Yeah. It says, basically, if you haven't failed, you haven't actually tried hard enough. You're playing it too safe, playing small. And that's the real failure, according to the source.
Wow. Okay, so failure is data.
It's data. It provides lessons, builds resilience, shows you what doesn't work so you can adjust. And the source reminds you, crucially, that you have control over your thoughts about failure, and therefore how failure makes you feel. And also, every single successful person you admire has failed. Probably a lot.
That perspective makes the next idea maybe a bit easier to swallow. A C+ day can change your life. What's that about? The good enough list.
Exactly, the good enough list. It's about recognizing that not everything in your life needs or deserves an A+ effort.
Okay, what does that look like practically?
Well, maybe your mental A+ list has stuff like launch $1 million business, run a marathon, solve world hunger. Totally overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Your C+ list, though, might have things like respond to those 3 important emails, go for a 15-minute walk, make a reasonably healthy dinner instead of ordering pizza again.
Stuff that's actually doable.
Doable. Sometimes a C+ effort is totally sufficient. It keeps you moving, prevents burnout, and helps you avoid that paralysis that comes from feeling like you have to do everything perfectly or you might as well do nothing. And crucially, you get to make your own C+ list. It's not dictated by your inner critic or what you think others expect.
That feels like permission to be human.
It really is. And bringing it back to the physical self for a moment, the source highlights physical movement. Simple idea. Our bodies are just meant to be in motion.
But not as punishment, right?
Absolutely not. That's the key point. Exercise shouldn't be framed as punishment, either for eating something bad or for not sticking to some crazy diet. The goal is to find movement you genuinely enjoy, something that makes you feel good in your body.
It's like the anecdote in the book.
Yeah, the great little story about seeing an older woman buying roller skates because she loved it as a kid. That's it right there. Finding joy in movement, regardless of how you look doing it or whether it fits some external fitness goal.
That story really lands. Doing something authentic, even if you feel a bit silly maybe.
Which leads perfectly into the next idea, embracing uniqueness. Or, as the book puts it, flying your freak flag.
Your freak flag, okay.
The source insists everyone has something unique about them. Some quirk, some passion, some way of being that's just hardwired into them, even if it feels weird or isn't popular or makes you uncomfortable sometimes.
And the danger is hiding it.
Yes. Trying to hide that unique part or trying to be this sort of watered-down version of yourself to fit in.
Yeah.
The source says that's basically rejecting yourself. And it makes this really powerful statement. The more you reject yourself, the farther away you get from your dreams and the farther away you get from the life you were meant to live.
So embrace the weirdness.
Wave that freak flag proudly. The world actually needs your authentic self, quirks and all.
Okay, but what happens when you start doing that? When you're truly authentic?
Well, according to the source, you might find yourself pissing people off.
Right. That sounds maybe not ideal.
Well, the source frames it differently. When you speak your truth, when you stand up for your beliefs, when you live authentically, yeah, you might make some people uncomfortable. You might annoy them.
Why?
Often, it means you've struck a chord. You've challenged their comfort zone, or maybe highlighted something they aren't ready to look at in themselves. But the key takeaway is, it's not your job to manage their insecurity or their reactions.
Let them have a reaction.
Let them have it. As the source puts it, kind of bluntly, haters gonna hate. Standing up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular, that's how progress happens.
Yeah.
Like the suffragettes, they weren't worried about being popular. They unapologetically pushed for their beliefs and changed the world.
Okay, moving into the final section here. Acceptance and trust. The source tackles pain pretty directly with pain wisdom.
Yeah, doesn't shy away from it. Everyone experiences pain, heartbreak. That's universal. What separates people, the source argues, is what they do with that pain.
You can let it define you.
Or you can choose to use it. Use it as fuel to recreate yourself, to gain some profound wisdom.
That's a really challenging idea when you're right in the middle of suffering, though.
Oh, absolutely. And the source even asks this incredibly pointed question related to that. Why are you so committed to staying in pain?
Ooh, that's direct.
It forces you to look, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To consider if, maybe unconsciously, you're holding on to suffering. Perhaps because it's familiar, feels weirdly safe. Or maybe it provides a certain identity or gets you attention.
That's something to think about. And this ties into numbing feelings.
Exactly. The common behavior of numbing your feelings. It's totally normal to want to numb pain or discomfort. Society often tells us certain feelings, anger, sadness, fear, are bad or shouldn't be shown.
People tell you don't feel bad.
Right. People might invalidate your feelings like that, often because they're uncomfortable seeing you in pain, which just reinforces the idea that you shouldn't feel it and encourages more numbing.
So the goal isn't to not feel.
No. The goal is to feel them. Feel the anger, the hurt, the fear. Feel it fully, but without letting those feelings make you think badly of yourself or lead you to make destructive choices. It's about processing the emotion, letting it move through you, not getting stuck in it or acting out from it.
Okay, process. Don't numb. But sometimes it's just hard.
Totally. And that's why the source also says, cut yourself some slack already. It's okay to have bad days, bad weeks even.
Permission to not be okay.
Yes, permission to not be okay. It's even okay to have what the source colorfully calls shit fits. Just moments where you need to let the frustration or sadness or anger out instead of bottling it up or pretending everything's perfect all the time. It's all part of being human. It's a process, and sometimes that process just includes having a plain old bad day. And that is okay.
That's really validating. The source also touches on finding spirituality. How does it frame that?
Not strictly about organized religion, although it could be for some. It's more about finding a connection to something greater than yourself, a sense of meaning, maybe, or a force beyond your immediate understanding or control.
There's a personal story shared, right?
Yes, about being in deep pain, crying out to something unseen, asking for help, and really trying to consciously give away the suffering. And while the external situation didn't instantly change,
The internal state did.
exactly, There was this reported shift, a sense of a burden lifting, a little flicker of hope returning, a release from that desperate need to control everything. It's about finding that capacity within yourself to surrender control sometimes, to release pain to something larger, whatever that means to you.
Surrender and release.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And finally, maybe the toughest one of all, especially in hard times. Know this is exactly where you are supposed to be.
Yeah. That is a really tough one to hear when you feel lost or hurt or completely stuck.
So how does the source explain it? It's not saying, like, this bad thing is good.
No, not at all. The source acknowledges how difficult this concept is. It frames it less as some kind of predestination or a justification for suffering, and more as an invitation to trust.
Trust what?
Trust the unfolding process of life, maybe. Trust your own inherent capability to navigate whatever comes your way. Trust that even if you absolutely cannot see it right now, something valuable, maybe even something wonderful, might be emerging from this difficulty.
So it requires a decision.
It requires a conscious decision, yeah.
Yeah.
To accept your current reality. Not necessarily like it, but accept it as the starting point. And sometimes, the source suggests, the most powerful thing you can do is simply stand still. Be fully present where you are and trust. Trust that all of it, the hard moments, the missteps, the pain, they are all part of your unique path unfolding.
Wow. Okay. We have covered a lot of ground today just from these excerpts.
We really have. From tackling those limiting beliefs we all carry and learning to manage that nagging inner critic.
Right, giving it a name even.
Yeah. To navigating tricky relationships, finding a sense of purpose, even if it's not some huge mission, and really leaning into embracing our imperfections, our unique quirks.
We talked about practical stuff too, like ditching the scale, telling people your dreams, explored the discomfort of letting go, whether it's friends or exes.
Confronted that myth of needing external closure and the toxicity of chasing perfection.
Yeah. The thread running through it all, it seems to me, is about these conscious internal shifts. Taking ownership, really, of your own state of being.
Mm-hmm. And choosing to show up authentically in the world, even when it feels scary or when it might, piss people off.
Right.
The source just keeps encouraging us to move out of that victim mindset, stop defining ourselves by what others think or what happens to us.
And accept that pain isn't necessarily a roadblock to a kick-ass life.
Exactly. It can actually be a catalyst for wisdom if we're willing to process it. And reminding us that failure, it's not the end, it's just part of the game, part of trying and growing.
So as you, our listener, reflect on this deep dive into living a kick-ass life, here's maybe a final thought to leave you with.
Okay.
If chasing external perfection really is a race to nowhere, and if who you are right now, what you represent just by being you is inherently purposeful enough, what single authentic step could you take today, right now, exactly where you are, to live just a little bit more of your unique kick-ass life?
Well, we are getting at the end, and that was really a good journey, a really powerful conversation. Thank you for staying until the end. And remember, subscribe, like, and share. Join us. Check out our channel. You will find much more.
If you believe in the power of words and ideas, subscribe, like, and share. So if you engage with this channel, you should expect content aimed at deep change, a strong emphasis on community participation, and a culture that really values the act of sharing as something meaningful, a duty to something more emotional or maybe spiritual.